Hey, what's up guys? John Thacker here today with The Real Truth Media, and I'm here today to talk about a very little known Bronze Age civilization called the Mitanni. Civilization so forgotten that they would not be remembered until 3,000 years after their downfall. The Mitanni Empire was subject to outside and inside fighting. While for a time the Mitanni adapted to the outside forces on the field, however, they could not adapt to the forces on the inside, such as corruption. Ever since the start of this great civilization, the Mitanni has had to build up their military, economy, and diplomacy to be successful in the Mediterranean area. The collapse of the Mitanni was a little bit before the Bronze Age collapse, which was circa 1300 to 1280s BCE. When the Assyrians destroyed the capital of Saushshatar, whose location has been guessed by archaeologists to be on the headwaters of the Khabur River and is not yet to be confirmed. Thanks to the Assyrians in their day, we have a very small amount of inscriptions from the Mitanni since they obviously burned down their capital. And almost all the information we have from the Mitanni are from the Egyptians and the Hittites. The ancestors of the Mitanni were people from northern Mesopotamia that migrated down south. And that area is Armenian now, so they are the ancestors of the Armenians. The area did not need artificial irrigation, so farming was way easier there. Mixed in with the cattle, it gave them a huge advantage to flourish compared to other kingdoms in the area. With this advantage, it was easier for the civilization to begin and prosper, similar to the Egyptians southwest to the Nile. After migrating south around 2300 BCE, the peoples were just called Hurrian tribes, and they fought with themselves constantly, and they fought with others on the outside too, such as the Babylonians and Hittites. Then, circa 1585 BCE, the tribes were absorbed by the Hittites, along a rampage on the Euphrates River, which eventually ended with the sack of Babylon. When the Hittite king Marcellus sacked Babylon, there was a brief period of time where there was a stop in writing. You could call this a dark age. Then, from around 1550 to 1450 BCE, the Mitanni started to solidify themselves as a great empire. They took advantage of their location and traded with all the surrounding empires, improving their economy. The Mitanni's geographic location and all of its borders were on line with the Egyptians, the Hittites, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, which made them a very great vector for trade, which made them very successful. So, trade, war, and diplomacy were all vital in the survival of the Mitanni. The government of the Mitanni was centered around a very authoritative dictator, with having a high class of noble warrior kings or patron kings, where they fought on chariot horses all the time. The Mitanni were great inventors, creating scale armor which increased the defense and increased troop durability, and the spoke wheel for chariots, which were two major inventions in the battlefields. After the Mitanni became an established civilization, they had to deal with all of the bordering civilizations such as the Egyptians, the Babylonians, and the Hittites. And the Mitanni king Saushshatar held them all back, defending all of their borders and even conquering some land from the Egyptians, Hittites, and all of Assyria. The Mitanni people loved and respected him so much that they would use his seal after him and use it for other kings, making it hard to date specific events after his death. And out of all of the squabbling empires, the Hittites were the biggest threat of all, rising the quickest and having the most power. Mitanni and the Egyptians got scared. Since the Mitanni and Egyptians were so scared of the Hittites' power, they created an alliance, solidifying the two as really close allies. and this was solidified through marriage. The Mitanni gave up Mutumwe. From this alliance, Egypt and Mitanni both got great benefits. Periodically, the Egyptians and Mitanni would trade exquisite, lavish gifts, and their goodwill made great trade relations between the two. The Mitanni is now in their prime, and is a fairly peaceful nation, very mercantilistic, and even trading with the Mycenaeans, and having a more sufficient army to protect their borders and keep one major internal enemy in check, the Assyrians. But alas, all good things come to an end. The decline of the Mitanni started around 1360 to 1350 BCE, when the Mitanni king Artashumara was assassinated. With the king murdered, his brother, Tushratta, was put on the throne at a very young age, which made him prone to being a puppet king in the first place. Following the assassination, Mitanni broke off all diplomatic relations with Egypt. Why would the government of Mitanni decide to do this? Is it possible that the groups that assassinated Artashumara were the Assyrians or the Hittites? With the current Mitanni king young, inexperienced, and with the least influence on politics, the government became corrupt, taking advantage of the young king. Tushratta became a puppet king, and his only option was to lay low and to wait for his revenge. After years of growing, gaining experience, gaining power, Tushratta eventually killed all the assassins. The assassins' death gave way for the Mitanni king to actually rule his empire as it should be. As soon as Tushratta acquired power, he had two problems with his kingdom. First, the Hittites were constantly on the border, trying to take Mitanni land. And second, if he could not get help with the Hittites, they would completely wipe out the Mitanni. So Tushratta contacted Egypt and gave his daughter Tapukipa, who is said to be the famous Egyptian queen Nefertiti, her name meaning a beautiful woman has come. After the establishment of the alliance between the Mitannis and Egypt, there were two factions that appeared in the court of Mitanni. One faction which favored the Hittites, which were controlled by his brothers, and another faction were led by the Assyrians. In addition to the infighting of the Mitanni, a certain major power is building. Then in 1344 to 1332 BCE, a Hittite general called Suppiluliuma started to gain traction on conquering to their east and even some to their west, taking some land from Egypt and Mitanni. Ashur-uballit I was an Assyrian who looked at the insides of the Mitanni, looking at how weak their government was, and he decided to take advantage of it, not through means of force, but through political power. After the Assyrians took some land from the Mitanni, the empire just became a battleground for the Assyrians and the Hittites. In the end, the Mitanni was enveloped by corrupt officials, insufficient unloyal armies, and possibly a multitude of other factors that people may not know of today. It is interesting how the Bronze Age collapse and the fall of Mitanni were so close together. Could some of the factors that caused the Bronze Age collapse and the Mitanni be linked? Personally, I think so. This has been John Thacker with Real Truth Media. Check out our Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and I'll see you later.